Empty Epsilon scenario writing, simple communications. Now, in our previous video, we talked about this print line and how it needs to go away. I'm just going to comment it out because I might need it later again for testing. Meanwhile, let's go over and see what communicating with the player as a GM dynamically looks like. So we go to the Game Master screen. The first thing I want to do is create myself a Human Navy Dreadnought, and we'll put it near the station. Let's tweak it. We'll give it a name. I think I'll call it Elon, and essentially indicate that it's a flagship in parentheses. We also want to be sure that it can't be destroyed because this is our primary communication vehicle, so we uncheck that could be destroyed Boolean. We also want it to protect the human station. So shift right click, and you see the orders change to defend target. Let's select the player. We click the Hail Ship button. Now, in GM to player communication, you as the GM are playing a role, so you identify who you are when you communicate with the player. So that's what we were filling out there. On the player side, relay, you see it says, hailed by Elon. So on the player side, we're going to say, what can we do for you, Admiral? This would be hard to accomplish if you didn't have a keyboard on your client. The Admiral is going to ask if they've destroyed the Kraylor station, being the mission-focused individual that he is. The player is going to respond, not yet, and indicate that they do not know where the station is. The implied question is, can you tell us where it is? And the Admiral is not going to give them the information directly, although they could. If the players were just really clueless, you could just tell them it's over there in D3, but he just tells them to check the freighters. And we did that in a previous video. We stored that information with the freighters, and if the players will go and scan them, they can get that information. Since I went to the trouble of creating the Dreadnought, I'm going to go back to the GM screen and grab it. Now, the last time we did this, we did copy scenario. This time we're doing copy selected. So we just get the Dreadnought. And I'm going to paste that resulting text into my scenario. And like we saw before with some of the enemies that we created, the target information did not come across, so I'm going to put in home station, which is the variable that we have for the home station. There are three other functions that I want to add to this. We want to set can be destroyed to false. We want to use a comms function, and we want to set scanned to true so the player does not have to go to the trouble of scanning it. Now that we've set this Dreadnought to have a comms function called comms flagship, let's define that. In a comms function, you mainly work with two things. You have setCommsMessage and you have addCommsReply. The setCommsMessage, which is what we're putting in right here, is the text that appears at the top of the dialog box. And this represents what the entity in the game is saying to the player. So if we open comms, we'll get this message. I am the Admiral's relay officer. How can I help you? The addCommsReply function, for each one of those, you get one of the buttons at the bottom where you can choose from how you want to interact with the entity. So the first button we're going to put out there is, what is our mission? And you can define a function locally like this, or I think they call it an anonymous function, or you can create a separate function and define that again. This works well doing it anonymously like this because then you can see the back and forth and how it's related because the code is adjacent for the various options. So we're going to have two buttons. What is our mission, and where's the Kraylor station? Of course, with these messages that are going to go to the player, we want to be sure that we set them up for translation. So we're going to put the context out there, and for all three of these messages, when you close the parenthesis for the addCommsReply, make sure that you put that at the end of the string, not at the end of the line where the function is. Instead of having you watch me type all this stuff out, I'm going to copy paste what I've done before. Once you see this code, if you really want to look at it, you can pause and look at it, but you can see there's some back and forth there based on the indentation and the multiple functions. Let's go look at the result over in the game. So we'll start the scenario up, spawn the player ship, we double check, and yes, our Dreadnought is there. Let's go see what it looks like from the player perspective. We'll unpause, we'll go over to relay, and we will contact the flagship. What is our mission? It's to destroy the Kraylor station, and we don't know where it is. How do we get that information? They're going to make 3 suggestions. Fly around using your scanners, send out probes, or check with the freighters. Ta-da!